we're meant to believe that the answer is coming. We certainly want the answer to come.
Yeah. Well, the tension is building.
The tension is building, right?
Yeah.
And we want the answer to come. And at the end, I'm not entirely convinced that there is an answer. There is simply a showing up of God. The entirety of the book, well, actually from chapter 3 to 37, that's what Job really wants. He wants God to show up because he feels, I'm not saying that God wasn't present, but he feels that God is not present. And for him, that's like the worst.
Yeah.
Right? That's the worst thing that could happen to him. Chapter 325. Like the worst thing that it could ever happen to me has happened to me. And some people would say, well, it's because he lost his family, his kids died, he lost all his fortune, his wife told him to curse God and die. She left. So he's sick. I mean, he's completely covered with, some people would say leprosy or whatever's on him.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the worst thing that has happened to him. For him, the worst thing that could happen to him is for him to go through this and feel like God is not present with him.
Yeah.
Well, maybe go through this and find that God isn't present with him.
Yeah.
Because like as he's struggling, he's like, I just got to get to God. God will answer me.
So in that he's saying, I don't feel he's with me, right?
Yeah. Well, and at moments he says like, God is so close that I can't even swallow my spit. Like he's looking, like there's moments where yes, he feels God is so distant, but there's other moments where he feels like God is crushing him because of the suffering and the pain.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's his thing. Like he's, I'm not going to say complain, but what he's saying is like, I know that this is happening to me because God has allowed it. Like he makes God personally responsible for what's happening in his life. He does that. And then he says, I just want an audience with him. So
I could only get to God.
Yeah. I feel he's doing this. I am convinced because nothing happens in this world without him allowing it. And I want an audience with him.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe we can, go ahead. Did you have something?
No, I was going to transition to kind of our next topic here. So there's a couple different players, obviously, in the book, Job being one of them, and then everyone that kind of surrounds him. And the biggest, other players, I feel like, besides God and Satan, are the role of Job's friends. So how can we think about that? What is their role in the book?
Good. So let's first just kind of set the scene. So we mentioned briefly, God points at Job, says, Satan, look at him, he's righteous, he's upright. And then I kind of covered that Satan, God says, fine, take it all away. And Satan does. He takes away his kids, his family, everything he has. And then he still worships God. Like it's this beautiful moment. So in chapter 1, so the first stuff comes, right? Like he loses his kids, he loses his family. And then chapter 1, verse 20, then after all this happens, Job arose and tore his robes and shaved his head and fell on the ground and worshiped. So it's like this moment, he loses everything in ashes, in lamenting, rips his clothes up and worships God. And then is when Satan comes and says, well, it's just because you didn't let me strike him his health. And he goes back and strikes him. But still, you're right. In chapter 2, 9 and 10, we have the moment where even his wife comes. Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God? And shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. So this moment, even his wife says, curse God and die, and then leaves. And he says, this is still God. Like, God gives us good. How can we curse him when he gives us bad things too? And it's in those moments then that his friends appear. And then starting in 11, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. Comfort's a big theme here. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads towards heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word with him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. So we have this moment of like committed friends coming. Job is so torn down and leprous or something, like he's weeping and ill that his friends don't even recognize him. But they mourn with him. It's on their hearts to comfort him. And the first thing they do is they sit down for 7 days and 7 nights and don't say anything. Like what do we do with that, Mel?
Well, that's really interesting. When I studied this passage, I came to that verse. It says, "And no one spoke a word," but it doesn't say among them. It says to him. No one spoke a word to him. So, and as we progress in the book, we realize that somehow at some point they were processing, also trying to process what happened to Job. So just by reading that, like, as a creative writer, someone would imagine that there's conversations happening, yes, but not with him. So the best thing that the friends did in this whole story was the 7 days when they didn't speak to him, when they didn't say anything. They just sat with him and, allowed him to process what was going on in his life. So for me, like, that's one of the biggest things to understand when people are going through suffering and through pain. The best thing that we can do sometimes is just not say anything, just show up.
When you say your point about them potentially like talking amongst themselves or maybe their inner dialogue, do you mean that to be that, to show up and be present with someone, don't necessarily say something? Because I like that point too. They say, because they saw that his suffering was very great. So the greater the suffering, they wanted to be there and comfort him and not say anything. Yeah. And how should we, maybe practically, if we're comforting someone in our own minds, should we kind of refrain from trying to like figure it out, kind of like his friends might be doing in that moment?
Well, I guess from personal experience, I'm going to talk about that. There's this concept of, and when you're doing therapy, there's this concept of just sitting with people, right? Well, you can do that wrong as well. Like when I wrote about the book of Job, I imagined the friends not doing this, just based on the conversations afterwards. But something that we can do that in the way that we don't do this well is if we're sitting with a family member who suffered loss, we don't want to disturb that person, yet we're still among ourselves talking about the situation, what happened, or maybe some of the things that are going to need to get done, sure. All of this. Yeah. So all of this still going on, like that person, even though it's not being spoken to, and is being left to their own, there's conversations about what happened. Yeah. And that's still happening. And so, but when we sit with someone and all we can always say, hey, I'm present. I'm here if you need anything. And I'm just going to be with you. Yeah. That's different. Right. So it's a different, like, you can do this wrong as well. I want to believe that there's a part of the friends to truly want to comfort him. They come, they sit with him. They just want him to know that they're there. But then because of the conversations that happened later, we realized, man, while they were sitting there, they were conniving all kinds of ways to make sure that Job understood he did something wrong and he must repent. Right?
Gotcha. Rather than just being supportive or even being there and praying or something. Yeah.
Okay. I think we need to be careful there a little bit because it tells us why they came. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. So it does seem like their desire is to comfort. Yeah. But I think you're right in that we realize very quickly that like they're not good at comforting.
That's not their gift.
It's not their gifting. It's pretty quick that they say some silly things. But you're right. This first moment of they're sitting, they're sharing space with him. I think that's something instinctual that a lot of people have. Like I've sensed this when you encounter someone that's like deeply suffering, that you have this, like you can feel the mood, right? Like you walk in the room and you can feel like it's quiet and this person's not initiating conversation. And I think a good principle is just sit Just be with them. Don't open the conversation quickly. Just try to gauge where they are. Because I think so often we can feel that tension of like, oh, no one's really talking. Like,
I should interject.
I should say something. What should I say? I should say something wise.
Yeah.
Well, what's wise? God is in control, or something like this. That like,
Or
Something pithy.
something pithy, or there's this instinct to like break the tension. And I think we could take something here and say that, no, just wait. Like, sit with them, show them that you love them, show them that you care.
There's some really good practical advice here. Just showing up and being present for sure.
or you can say like, God works all things for the better for those that love Him, right?
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, it's so common sense. Like you just mentioned, like, okay, no one's saying anything. You read the room, you won't say.
But so many of us are like, okay, I gotta say something
Exactly. So common sense, but we don't listen to that common sense.
Yeah.
I think the majority of us, when we know of someone who has lost a family member or going through a lot of tragedy, it's like, oh, here, read this book. Oh, here, I have a word. I have a word from you from the Lord, or like, or we'll just repeat a lot of Christianese, and those people are like, they're not ready to hear any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big. Like in my life, like when I lost a family member, it was just extremely difficult. But I think years and years later, after you kind of hear those little short one-liners, like you realize that the heart is like, they don't want to see you in pain. So if like anything that they can do to kind of, fix it, they want to do that. And it ends up being maybe like a Band-Aid in an open wound that needs a totally different like medical addressing, type of healing that only God can provide. And they're just like, it ends up being sometimes more painful. So I think maybe just like a practical wisdom of just being cautious of like what you say, and just, it's more impactful in those moments. I think personally, just from experiencing it, like having people come and be there and like just hang out with you and like, I don't know, play a board game with you or something, or just talk, go for a walk, get you food. Those sorts of things are like, that's what really matters and has an impact, not like some little saying that I don't remember. It's totally true too, like theologically accurate, but not the most helpful in the middle of it,
Yeah, and those moments lead to moments down the road when you can share.
Yeah, for sure.
There will be a time when those words are properly received and understood and processed. But it's not right at the moment.
Yeah.
Like the friends showing up, like they have the right idea. They want to console Job and they want to comfort him. And that's the right idea. The moment that